everybody, and happy Tuesday. I hope everybody's having a great week and everybody's enjoying the weather. So today we'll talk about my favorite topic, Russia. However, this time we'll talk about the Magnitsky. Swiss prosecutor announced that they're halting the criminal proceedings. The case was started in 2011 on behalf of Bill Browder lawyers. Who is Bill Browder? He's a US and British financier. He also written a book that he is the biggest Kremlin's and Putin's foe. That book is on www.billbrowder.com, and there's a link to that if anybody's interested in reading it. I'm not promoting his book. I have not read his book. However, let's get back to Magnitsky. Magnitsky was an accountant, and he was actually working with Bill Browder or for Bill Browder pertaining accounting. He was arrested and he was charged with fraud, and he died in custody within a year of being arrested in 2008. And there was allegations that he was tortured and denied medical care, and this is the reason why he died. And the reason he was originally arrested, there's speculation that apparently he uncovered corruption and hidden funds in Swiss banks by Russian government officials. This is what the speculation has been. It has not been proven or disproven. However, one thing is proven for sure. Russia has a track record of torturing detainees, cooking up charges like it happened recently, for example, with Sergei Frugal, who was accused of organizing murder from close to 10 years ago or even over 10 years ago, even though he was allowed to run in political elections, but he was from LDPR party, which is obviously an opposing party to Putin and his United Russia. But nevertheless, there's no true opposition in Russia. I stand by that because in reality, Russian opposition just a useful scenario where yes, there's a democracy, but that's a false democracy and a false sense of security. This is basically just another social engineer. Oh look, Russia does have other parties. But this is again outside the scope of this video. But nevertheless, so this is the story with Magnitsky, and Bill Browder and his lawyers actually convinced Swiss authority to start a criminal investigation. He gave statements, and the statements were against one individual who is actually Russian-Israeli, but he does reside in Russia, and 4 other companies. So, and the individual who is Russian-Israeli who holds both citizenship is Denis Sitik. What is very interesting about all of this is that in reality, a lot of it, yes, it's Russian politics, and it is great that the case was brought forward and it gained publicity because there's serious violations of human rights in Russian prison system, Russian arrest system. Anybody can be arrested, there could be falsified charges, documentation, cash found. It has been known tactics. Well, some even get divorced, they end up dead, but I'm saying as far as the arrest and everything like that. But also, it involves multiple prong factor. I'm not excusing torture and murder, and I think the West should look into it, and sanctions were legit in regards to conditions as far as Magnitsky was held. But nevertheless, there's a lot of different fractions within Russia, and I think in case of Bill Browder, he bet on Berezovsky. There's also Khodorkovsky, who spent time in prison. They're all from the same type of crew because there is a certain faction of Russian/Israeli, and Israel has nothing to do with it, not politically, but because they're Jewish background and Jewish religion, a lot of them were able to obtain Israeli passports as well, and they were betting on Berezovsky to become the next leader of Russia, except they bet wrong because in reality of it, the former KGB and now FSB, there's the main players in Russia. That's who gets elected politically, that's who gets ahead. It's not going to be any type of businessman, and it's not going to be anything that the party and the group of people actually believed in, and especially Bill Browder was one of the largest investors. He is also part of Hermitage. That's his company. In reality, he just bet wrong and he ended up having huge losses as far as finances are concerned. But nevertheless, as far as pertaining to this criminal case, the case was halted on November 6th by Swiss prosecutor, which is a federal court. However, Bloomberg announced the closure of a case on November 19th, but that is all that's been provided. However, there's more information that's now available, and I had to search for it. I actually found the actual criminal case. It's actually a criminal case if anybody wants to do further research. And I know there is a Russian journalist, I believe Oleg Luria, that actually requested the case. I'm sure there's going to be certain information that will be blacked out because obviously for security reasons, but nevertheless, apparently there's a way to obtain that case. If anybody's interested, I'm not looking to obtain a case or anything like that, but the case number is SV.110049-LAM, and this is an actual Swiss case. So what does it mean? The criminal proceedings have been closed, and the reason they've been closed is not because anybody was found guilty, but for the test, in order to have it prosecuted and actually have a full indictment in this case, they were saying there's a lack of evidence because the statements provided were by Bill Browder, and I believe the statements must have been legit, of course, but at the same time there was not enough witnesses, there was not enough for Swiss court to actually have a criminal case. But I think the biggest thing that Bill Browder's lawyers actually accomplished is bringing publicity and attention to this case. However, Swiss did announce that the civil submissions of losses and damages could be submitted now, but the criminal proceedings are clearly closed. So as far as the great thing about it, in 2016, of course, U.S. Congress passed an act pertaining Magnitsky Act, which is basically the individuals and government officials could be sanctioned and put under sanctions for human rights violations. EU announced at the end of last year that they're working on their own Magnitsky Act scenario, but at the same time, the criminal proceedings, Browder will not get any criminal prosecution in this case, or Switzerland will not pursue that. And I'm sure that Bill Browder is going to be making a statement in the next few days pertaining to this, because I'm sure his legal team is not happy about the closures and everything like that. Of course, Russia is spinning it in a different direction. For Russia, they're saying the case was bogus, Magnitsky was never tortured, etc., etc. He was the one involved in fraudulent transactions. But of course, as anything, there's always going to be propaganda, counter-propaganda, social engineering. There's nothing less that I expect out of Kremlin and Russia. However, the case numbers that I gave you and the findings on this case, which obviously I never read the case, but there is a certain information that is now available from the prosecutors themselves that someone actually ordered. It is available, but the information is in French and Russian, so I'm not sure how many of my viewers actually know French or can read it, because if anyone wants to have additional information, I can actually post links to that, but at this time, like I said, unless it's upon request, I'm not putting it in this video because it's not in English, and clearly, majority of my audience is, I would believe, is English speakers. So this is the reason behind it. But anyways, what is interesting about the criminal case, as far as the closures and substantiated, interestingly enough, because Browder claims huge theft and basically that the funding were stolen, there was fraud involved and everything like that, and especially, with those 4 companies and then ascending individuals that I mentioned. But it was actually interesting. If you look at the criminal case, and obviously I'm not privy to the whole case or investigations or findings like that, but a little bit that's available, apparently Swiss courts do not believe there's enough evidence that it actually occurred. So that could be two-pronged scenario. There could be one that Russia covered their tracks for available. There could be also 2, because a lot of times when people are vested in a case and when they're actually victims of scenarios and everything happens like that, they tend to believe a lot of times more that can be done. But unless you could prove it, without reasonable doubt, or even prove enough that there could be a criminal component, there's no prosecutors, there's no court that's going to issue indictment. And I'm sure they would have loved to, because it gained so much notoriety. And for someone who's working on that case, including prosecution, that's a huge name out there, something like that, and especially prosecuting a case like that. But nevertheless, clearly it did not gain enough to go there. But it also makes you wonder a lot of times. And I'm not saying because, Magnitsky died and tortured. A lot of times in Russia, unfortunately, this happens a lot, especially within Russia, where people switch sides at all times. I don't know the background of Magnitsky, and I'm not saying he did anything wrong or right. But given the backgrounds, a lot of times when people switch factions, people go back and forth on certain scenarios and do certain things. And as far as even financial dealings and everything like that, I honestly believe that Magnitsky probably knew too much, and that's the truth behind it. At the same time, I'm sure that was true that there's hidden funds in Swiss bank. But at the same time, it makes you wonder whose accountant was he before and what he did, and there's no excuse for him dying. And I think Bill Browder did a wonderful job bringing it to the world and everything like that. But at the same time, it makes you wonder, because in Russia, and this is a whole thing, anybody who invests in Russia or bets on any type of opposition dark horse, it will not 99.9 it will not materialize. And this is a true statement because it's not going to happen. Never mind how Russia plays, how Russian FSB plays, how everything else. There's not enough strong opposition. If there is anybody, they end up going exile because they end up having themselves not a clean background. And this is part of a problem with Berezovsky and everything else. Obviously, he's dead. But what I'm saying is a lot of them start out there involved in criminal activities themselves, and by the time they switch over, there's so much dirt on them and back and forth. And this is the reason why I have a Wild West background all the time in my videos, because Russia is Wild West. Even though Russia says the wild 90s are done, at the same time there's still murders occurring. Some of them we hear about, some of them not. Interesting deaths. A lot of times lately there's been a lot of oligarchs that died, and of course clean up house, especially with the new amendments coming to Constitution. So this is why I wanted to point out. So that is why, and I would never blame the dead, and I never think anybody should be tortured, and this is great awareness, and there should be sanctions against Russia, what's happening. But nevertheless, given the test and trajectory, how it occurs, it almost seems like Russia needs brand new everything. It needs brand new government, but at the same time, no matter how much you put brand new government, the people's mentality remains. And this is a very hard statement and a harsh fact to absorb, is that the mentality doesn't change. So even if you give brand new government, and let's say you get a new leader, Russians still like bribes. Russia still likes dealing with violence to resolve certain things. They believe in killing. And this is the sad part. It has not stopped. It maybe became more hidden, or it became more difficult to decipher, but it's still happening in the same way, and to earn money in Russia and everything else. But nevertheless, I would love to know what everybody thinks. Please click like, please subscribe to my channel. You can also read my articles at christinakitova@communalnews.com. We'd love to hear more about your opinions about specifically the case of Magnitsky. As far as Bill Browder, I'll post the case number underneath my video if anybody wants to research it further or order on the Freedom of Information additional disclosures. I'm sure some will be provided because, like I said, there's one Russian journalist who already got a response. I'm not sure what the wait times to actually obtain it, but I would be interested to know what everybody thinks. If anybody obtains it, would love to have comments, would love to have a live discussion about it. Thanks again for watching and have a great day. Bye for now.